afternoon, everybody. Thank you all for coming down tonight. We are live from Books and Books in Coral Gables, Florida, so a note to our internet audience watching at home. If you're interested in tonight's book, we could have it shipped to wherever you are in the U.S. free of charge. Just call the number on your screen. This evening, Books and Books is very happy to present Mr. James O. Bourne and his new book, Scent of Murder. We also have a little extra security here tonight to my left, as you've no doubt noticed. Mr. Bourne is the award-winning author of 8 novels, the most recent of which, Border War, was co-written with commentator Lou Dobbs. He is a former U.S. drug enforcement agent and currently a special agent with the Florida Department of Law Enforcement. All of his novels draw from his career and are therefore known for their realism. In this book, we meet Deputy Tim Hallett. 2 years after being tossed from the Detective Bureau for using questionable tactics while catching a child molester, he's finally gotten his life back on track. Assigned to a special canine unit, Hallett has finally learned to balance police work with his family life. But that all changes in the heat of a Florida sugarcane field. Rather than have me give away any more of his plot, please give a very warm welcome to Mr. James O. Bourne.
I would still be crying if I was bitten without the sleeve 5 years ago. That's how badly it hurt. And I'm not even going to get too close to him.
I socialize him, so some dogs you can't.
And I actually have a couple of things. I have a book that I'm going to sign for Alex because I appreciate him coming out. And if anyone who's involved in writing or publishing, you know, you do not give books out easily. Are you getting pictures, Scott? Can you send them to me? So he's a cute, fun dog that I hope is not just going to turn bad on me. And what's funny is Alex says he has his other dog retired, and that the two of them, the other dogs, he's been keeping the retired dog active and is probably responsible for him still being alive, which oddly, I am not kidding, is the plot of the sequel to this book, which doesn't come out for at least a year, but I swear to God is done and has been sitting on my editor's desk, so I didn't just make that up. I am an agent with the Department of Law Enforcement, and I can't say anything bad about it, not because my boss is in the back taking pictures of me, but it's true. I've known him for we were in the academy together, and I've never had a bad day with FDLE. I can say that. And I go into our retirement program where I actually keep my job for a short time in about 2 weeks. So I have 25 full years in. I can tell you honestly, my kids have aged me more than police work ever will. When I was still I started with the U.S. Drug Enforcement Administration, DEA. I was down here in Miami, in Coral Gables. And you guys from down here understand there's a difference between Coral Gables and Miami. Trust me, once you get north of Hollywood, Miami, Coral Gables, South Miami, even Homestead are just one big blob to everyone else. But I learned a lot. I learned how to deal with people. I learned how to deal without sleep. And I enjoyed my job. The only reason I even left the DEA was I was going to be transferred. And my wife suggested that I might not enjoy living by myself in Cleveland. So, and as it turns out, ironically, I haven't particularly enjoyed living with her in Boynton Beach all these years either. So about the time I left, I get a call from Elmore Leonard, who I had met, who, at the time, he wasn't like he is now, but he was popular. And people say, well, how did he pick you out? It's like, well, he wanted to find one of the most knowledgeable law enforcement people in the world. But in fact, he was a friend of my dad's. He actually knew someone who knew my dad, and he had a couple of questions he wanted to ask me. And the first thing I ever answered for him was on the book, Get Shorty. And it stayed in the movie. He wanted to know how would he get a gun past security if you were a bad guy. And I told him, at the time, the stat was about 25%. It's around there now. 25% of police officers are shot with their own weapon. And he really liked that idea. So it made it into the book and the movie. And he talked to me about every books after that, with the exception of like Cuba Libre history books. Although I'm a history buff, I could have helped him, but he didn't ask. And at some point, after a couple of years, he said, you really should write some of these stories down, some of these things that you tell me, and maybe you could make a novel. And he made it sound so easy that all these years later, looking back, because it took almost 14 years to get published, it was the worst advice you could have had, because it's anything but easy. It's a challenge, and I'm not complaining because I enjoy it, and I had a couple of, pretty good deals. The book I wrote last year with Lou Dobbs was perfect because I didn't have to do any promotion. And you forget how when a guy has his own TV show and talks about the book every night, it sells. I was thinking it felt odd to have a book out and I really didn't have to do anything. And I got used to it. I got complacent in a mere year because this year I had 220 emails from the Friday before the book came out until the Tuesday it came out. People asking me, are you going to be here? Can you do this? Can you do that? Trying to arrange for the canines coming out. And he was worth it, though. And we're going to take a minute. I'll answer any questions. And it's up to Alex how much contact we have with the dog. You, young man, are first, just in case. I'll answer a question.
Are you ready for your dummy?
Oh, no, but I'll call on you. Oh, you're a holdover from the astronaut. You're wearing a NASA shirt. Get out of here. I wanted to meet the astronaut too, but he was too busy. And when I walked up, a guy said, hey, are you an astronaut too? And it was all I could do not to say, yes, I am. So I have the new book coming out. My first book, Walking Money, which I have 2 books. I'm going to give 2 away. Walking Money is, I told my daughter, who is now 21, when it came out when she was about 10, she said, when can I read it? And I said, when you're 30. Because it's a rough, especially by today's standards, the language, it's gritty and rough. And just at Christmas, she said, jokingly, can I read Walking Money? I said, yeah, in 9 years. Because I remember my promises to them. So I have Walking Money, and I have Field of Fire, which is about the ATF. And it actually, everything is based on something that's happened to me. And I'll give you the background on the canine story. It's a little gross. It won't bother him, will it? No. We'll see. At this point, I don't care. He's already insulted me. But I was having lunch one day with some buddies, some Broward detectives, and we had a bunch of ATF guys with us. And there was a guy who was, I won't mention his name. He's retired now, but he rose up pretty high in the ranks. Good guy. And he was Cuban, and he said something about living with his parents. And he was like 30. And which now I realize the guy was my hero. But one of the detectives said, you live with your parents? You mean like your mama does your laundry, live with your parents? And he looked at him with a serious face and said, of course she does my laundry. She loves me. And from that sprang a character who's a driven ATF guy that lives at home with his parents. It's not a sitcom. I mean, people die. It's kind of nasty. But in reality, he lived at home with his parents. And what's really funny is there's a prosecutor up there now in West Palm Beach who's a good friend of mine who was living with his parents up until about 5 years ago. He'd moved away, but he'd come back. And they were actually Portuguese, but he lived in the same neighborhood I described here. And he always claimed that I had stolen the character from him. I let him believe it, but that's not true. As far as Roy and my canine book goes, when I was with the DEA, I was in a foot chase at the Palm Beach airport. And the guy had assaulted one of our agents, and he was running. It was a blown surveillance, which happens. The only good stories in police work, the only interesting ones, are when things go wrong. Now, it drives people like him crazy, but guys like me love it because I'm not going to really get in trouble for it. I'm senior enough, I can usually blame someone else for what happened. And then I still get to chase someone or run or whatever you get to do that's fun. Now, it's a lot slower chase now, and I utilize cars and even a walker if I have to. But I was chasing this guy at the Palm Beach International Airport. He ran across Belvedere Road. Does anyone know West Palm Beach at all? Now it's a big road. At the time, it was a fairly small road. And a deputy, PBSO deputy, had heard on the radio something was going on in the airport. He came around. He realizes I'm chasing that guy. That guy's running from me, even though I was dressed, roughly like this. And he gets in front of us and he says over the loudspeaker, "Stop or I'll release my dog." That is the first thing every cop is taught. When they say stop, all fun and games are over. He doesn't know the difference between me and anyone else. I stop. The other guy keeps running. And I remember thinking, that is poor judgment. And it was a German Shepherd. Back then they used to go to Germany to get them. They were spectacular. They still are spectacular. I could feel him gallop against this wide open field. Why you're running from a dog with 100 yards in every direction, I don't know. And the dog brought him down by the leg, hard, boom. So as I walk up, this is where it gets a little gruesome, but the guy had severed his femoral artery, and he was bleeding badly. In fact, it shot, you've probably seen this, shot in a geyser taller than me. Just had to be 6 feet high. I was freaked out. I was pretty new, too. And the canine deputy never missed a beat, kind of casually walked up, surveyed the scene, looked at me and said, "Would you look at that?" And turned around and walked off. And I was like, okay, these guys see everything. Then they got him medical care and everything was fine. But it stuck with me. And then, skipping way ahead, I write a couple of books. They do reasonably well. One of my first book signings was here. And I was very excited. I'd been here the week before, or a couple of weeks before, for Elmore Leonard. And I can still remember, and those of you that are readers would understand why I'm excited about it. So James Hall was sitting on one side of me, and Dave Barry was on the other. And they were cracking jokes, and Dave Barry said stuff that I cannot repeat. But it was funny. And it must have been about three months later I got to come. And I was over in that room, I'll never forget it. Nice crowd. Actually, about this size, which you'd have to know for book signings, this is a really big crowd, and I know very few of you. I'm very impressed. So I had told someone as a joke when they knew the book was coming out, told one of the agents with FDLE that it's just a book, it's a lot of jokes about the FBI, which it is. And they said, "Man, the Bureau is not going to like that." And I said, as a joke, "There's no one in the FBI that scares me." So I'm sitting over there, and we're going through the line, and a guy walks up, younger guy, real tall, and he goes, "Hey, my name's Bill." I don't remember his name. He says, "I'm with the Bureau." I said, "Oh, hey, how are you?" So he hands me the book, and I sign it, and he leans down, and he says, "I heard there's not an FBI agent in Florida that scares you." And I said, "Apparently I was wrong." And so that taught me a couple of lessons that first day. But let me get to Scent of Murder. I'd like to claim complete credit for it creatively, but I was in New York maybe 3 or 4 years ago, and my agent, who is a great agent and a force in the publishing industry, very bright, And only an idiot ignores advice from bright people. That was directed at you, Scott. Because I'm constantly giving him advice about stuff he doesn't need advice on. But she said her daughter was interested in, loved animals. What would I think if she were interested in becoming a canine officer? And I was like, I don't think you understand that a canine officer, and I'm not just saying it because Alex is here and he's got a gun and a dog, but that's partially it. They're at the forefront. Everything that happens, if a dog and his handler are right at the front. I can't believe there's not more incidents where you read about a dog being hurt. There are plenty of incidences of them being hurt at your own peril. Get the camera ready. This will be funny. And I said, you can't have your... Well, maybe we won't have to use you. This is good. She didn't want it. She never understood that. And she said, why don't you write a book like that? And that's exactly what she said to me. Now, I can't tell her this at this point because then she's going to want more than her regular commission. But I say it when I'm away from her. When I'm in New York, I forget we ever had the conversation. And that's where the book started. And all I could think about was the first scene. I had been out in the Everglades looking for guys escaped from Glades Correctional back in, I hate to date myself, 1992. And we thought they were in the Glades. Turned out they were down here. One of them was literally in Coral Gables. So we're looking in the Everglades and he's over on, Alhambra, just relaxing. But we searched through the Everglades for a couple of days before someone said, I don't think they're here. I wish it would have been a couple of hours when someone said, I don't think they're here. But still, they captured the image of what I had in my head right off the bat. Not that I have any ability to change it. Once it's on the cover and they show it to me, in all 9 of my books, I've never been able to say, I don't like that. We're going to have to change that. But it's nice that they showed it to me. And they actually you may notice, anyone who's got the book, there's a couple of special effects on it. Like there's a footprint on the back. That's very rare. I was frankly shocked that they did it for me. I'm not bad-mouthing the publishers, but they typically don't do that. So the book is basically about this canine officer who's had some rough times at the sheriff's office, but he did the right thing. He had rough times, but he's a good cop, and he's now a canine officer for PBSO, and it's just about him assimilating into a job he thinks is going to be much different than his detective job, but it turns out when they really need him, he has to do a little bit more than he thinks he's going to have to do. But luckily, he's got the greatest partner in the world, which in the book is also a Belgian Malinois named Rocky. And it's just about their struggle through this. And, this typical, meets women. You can't tell me you don't get to meet all the women you want to meet. Gator or not. He went to the University of Florida, so usually we don't associate that with picking up women, but still.
Be careful, my wife.
Okay. But it's a police story, but it's also a story for people who love dogs. And I think Connie Ogle with the Miami Herald captured it pretty well in the interview she had with me that was in the paper earlier in the week. And I've gotten a couple of good reviews. Book Reporter that came out this week. It's like, I hope they just use that review for everything from now on. Because it looks like I wrote the review. Only I wouldn't have known some of the words the guy used. I appreciated it. And then there's a good review coming out on the Tribune Wire. I get to see them on, you do too, it's not like I have it, but they put them up on the web before they go in the newspapers anymore because they want to get ahead of everything. So I saw my Sunday's review already, and I was quite happy with it. That's the Miami Herald one, right? Yeah. That was just an interview that she did. So basically, that's it. I'm open to any questions. Thanks for giving away the book for tonight. Not people that traveled from Flu. For tonight, who drove the furthest, besides me, to be here tonight? So who thinks they drove the furthest?
129th and 8th Street.
Oh, come on. I'm not saying traffic. I'm talking about miles. I thought someone would say homestead at least. No. I know that's Golden Beach, but you have all my books. Okay.
So I came from Parkland. I spent all day working on Parkland, and I came just to be here.
That's it.
38 miles.
This one's yours. I did not know it was 38 miles to Parkland.
Now you know.
I do. Because I have to tell you, with the Florida Department of Law
It
Enforcement,
was exit 18B.
I know it well. I live just north of it. And with FDLE, you don't have to go to Parkland very often. And when you do, it's never a bad assignment. Yes, sir.
We pet your dog, Alex's dog.
Is it all right with you, Alex?
Yes.
Okay. Do you have all your fingers? For now. Okay. Good luck. Okay. And you have got to be a Garcia. Is that? And I met you when you were like 10 years old, and I remember that.
Maybe.
I have never. Did I make the rifle for you? That was your brother, the wooden rifle.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Was that for you?
That was for my brother.
Okay. His father is a good friend of mine who felt bad that he couldn't come. He was one of the guys that talked me into making sure I came to Books and Books on this. I can't believe how much you look like him. You got to get it all the time, because he only knows every single person in Dade. And his son wanted to be a cadet at where?
The Coast Guard.
Coast Guard. But the rifles, he was young. The rifles didn't fit him. And I was a woodworker. This is before I wrote the books. This had to be 15 years ago. So I told him I could make that rifle for him, not knowing that it wasn't that easy. I hope he still has that rifle. So I made it out of one solid piece, because I know how tough kids can be. Made it out of a 2x4, fit to him so he could twirl it and all that stuff. But here's the problem. My son saw me make it, and he's like, that is cool. Can I have one? So I made it for him. And then my daughter saw me making it for him, and she was like 7 years old. She said, would you make that for me too? So I would play capture the flag in our house using real tactics with wooden rifles with my 7-year-old daughter and 11-year-old son for years, and she's at the University of Florida now, so I don't want her around weapons. You never know what they're going to do with them. But what do you do now? I don't mean to just go off on a tangent.
I'm a postal inspector.
That's right. He told me. Believe me, he tells me all about all of you all the time. I can't give it to him either, because I know him. Who wants this book? Right there. That's good. I'll remember. Does anyone have any questions? Yes, ma'am.
So I had a question. I read a book recently that a Navy SEAL wrote, and
About training the dog.
yes, exactly. So is that the kind of training that your dogs go through, or
Yes.
what kind of training?
Yes, all of it. Florida, FDLE, Florida Department of Law Enforcement, has certain criteria that all departments in the state of Florida that has a canine unit has to meet every year. So we may go off a little bit from that, but all that general training all goes down to the control of the dog and the obedience and liability. So we're
And
always doing
the SEALs are a little different. They don't really care about liability much.
They don't.
I don't know if you noticed. And what's funny about that, they asked me if I'd be available to help him on not the first book, his second book, which was with Putnam, which is one of my publishers. And I was already committed on too many things. I said, I feel this is something I'd really be interested in. And that shows you how they take care of you, and they think about it because they realized I'd be interested in it. And I've worked on a couple of books with other people with them, just kind of fixing the book, people that weren't writers, law enforcement or military people. And they find that the military people and certainly law enforcement people responded better to a career law enforcement officer, giving them tips on stuff. Although I never did meet this guy. They loved him, and it wasn't like he was a problem. But I did work on one book where the guy was a problem, and had we been in the same room when I was working on it with him, his name wouldn't have been on the book. It would have been posthumous. I could see why they didn't want to work with him. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
Does the gender of the dog matter when they're training?
That's a good question. In Dade County, I only know of 2 dogs that are females. All of them are males. So one would argue that the female tends to be more, want to stay timid, not so much timid.
She spends too much money?
In certain situations.
Just my experience.
may be apprehensive of running or going away from the handler in certain situations. That's
Females,
what
I think,
I've
are
been told.
protected.
Yeah, a little bit that,
They want
yes.
to protect the area.
But I've done many searches with the Miami-Dade County who has that female dog, and I never noticed the difference in the gender and how they act or anything.
So is he neutered? Or
He
will
is not neutered,
Okay.
and that's my choice later on. For example, my first dog, I never planned on neutering him, but he around 7 years old, he was getting urinary tract infections, and that was, because his testosterone was still kicking in. So I had no choice but to neuter him. So.
I'm never going to tell you when I have a urinary tract. It's funny you mentioned, because in the book, there are 3 dogs in the book, all 3 males. Actually, I did a little research leading into it. But it's a Belgian Malinois, a German Shepherd who's a little bit larger, and in the book a little more aggressive, and then a Golden Retriever, who everyone says, yeah, exactly. And that's the whole point of it, is the guy they give the Golden Retriever to is a little on the short side, and he's furious he's got a cute dog. He wants a tough dog. So I try to work all that into the story, and I have to say I enjoyed working on it enough that I went right into the sequel. Usually I'll take a break or work on something else. Yes, sir?
In your sequel, you put a female and have puppies in it.
You know, I could, except it's done and I've been paid for it already, so that's not going to happen. Yes, ma'am?
I know that they're making more of an effort to get protective vests for the dogs.
Yes.
Is that also true here in Coral Gables? Are they
It
trying-
is. We recently, there was a gentleman out there who was nice enough to be donating money for vests, and they reached out to us, and we responded, and it was only for allocation for 1 vest.
Right.
And so
'Cause
we
they're
showed-
expensive.
They are. As a matter of fact, my colleague back there, he's the one that we chose. He has a big German Shepherd, almost 100 pounds, but he's also with the SWAT team, so we figured it'll be a better situation to have that vest handy since he's in SWAT, so he's the chosen one for that.
How much do those vests
I don't know. I would think it's over. Orly, do you know? Did you get a price amount?
I have no idea.
No.
I would probably estimate around $1,000.
Yeah, that's what it's
So
like
it's going to be
800
custom
or
fitted for his
$900
dog and everything. So
Now, here's a good reason why you don't act up in Coral Gables. Between the 3 of them, I couldn't even run away from them.
So what do you and Roy do here in Coral Gables?
Um,
The hallowed streets of Coral Gables.
we're all our dogs in the canine unit. There's 5 of us. Is the first primary thing is what we use the term apprehension. So that's a politically correct term of finding the bad guy and biting, whatever. So and then we have a choice to go ahead and pick a secondary, which would be either narcotics or bombs. So he's narcotics and Orlando's is bombs. So
You can ask him.
sure.
In Coral Gables?
Yes.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I've lived here all my
Well, let me
life.
tell you,
I just don't
for
understand.
example, for what,
Bombs
the
and
detection stuff, or for bombs and stuff, or, well, we have, for example, today he did a bomb sweep at the Biltmore because we have people coming in all the time.
Yeah.
He's
And
also
people that you don't even hear on the news that are
That's the thing,
delegates
I've
from
lived
other
here all my life and
countries.
you don't
also
know.
jaywalkers. He's one of the main dogs.
And we do enforce jaywalking.
Oh, okay. Okay.
How long did you work for the DEA, and did you ever get to work with dogs?
Worked with dogs a number of times, both with FDLE and the DEA. And I was with DEA 4 years. Back in the olden days when I was there, they used to transfer the whole class. So you know your class. That's how you always can tell if someone was really in it. Because people say, oh, I was with the DEA. When in fact they were probably a sheriff's deputy with the task force. But you say, oh, what class were you in? That is branded. I was in BA 48. I'll remember that the rest of my life. And back then they used to, unless you were in New York or Los Angeles, after about 4 years, they would transfer the whole class. Maybe Miami, but I was technically stationed in West Palm Beach. And they used to say, small southern town, you'll go to a big northern town. I didn't really have a problem with it, but when I joined, like a lot of guys, I didn't have a family. I had kids by the time I was getting ready to transfer, and the idea of moving them around didn't appeal to either my wife or I. I like to put it off on her, but it was a joint decision. But I haven't, the difference between the two, especially when I came on, was between FDLE and DEA was minimal. and except that with FDLE, I didn't really decide this when I came on. You make overtime. With DEA, you don't. And the retirement, which I didn't care, but I will in a week, is much better with FDLE than with the federal agencies. But you know, I was lucky because you know, not everyone gets a chance to publish books. I fully admit that I was lucky and that it's changed how I look at things, and you know, I don't have to worry quite so much about tuition or anything like that for the kids. Yes, ma'am.
How does he fit into family life? Like, I mean, does he, when he puts the vest on, he knows that he's going to work, but like when you take it off, like then he's playtime or?
Yeah, that he knows. For example, when I go to work in the morning, and he knows the whole routine that I do, putting on the uniform and such. So he knows. If we're going out to dinner or something like that, he'll come into the closet where I get dressed, and he'll sniff. If he smells these pants, and I'm telling you, they just came out of the dryer, freshly clean. If I put these on, he knows he's going. If I put the jeans on, he just kind of walks away and lays down. And not that he's pouting or anything like that, he just knows he's not going. So, and another interesting thing with that, when I retired the first one, for 10 years, he was going to work with me every single day. And so he went through that routine. All of a sudden, I bring this dog in, and I leave Hunter's, the other dog's name. I leave him behind. I swear I went through probably about 3 weeks to a month of that dog going through a depression. And I felt sad, you know. And so I was told from another officer who's had many dogs also in the line of work that take the dog every once in a while in your police car, and you'll see how he just come back to life. And I did that, and that was great advice. So, and he's still alive. He's doing well. And this guy's keeping him young by playing with him all the time.
I'm going to ask someone, are you good with a phone camera by any chance?
Still shot?
Yeah.
Maybe the youngster here might be better.
I've already taunted him enough. I'd hate to think what he's going to do to my pictures.
It's a generational thing.
I just wanted, before everyone comes up, and I just wanted to get a couple of pictures of me with Alex and the dog, and one with a book right by Roy. So you just keep tapping that as many times as you want.
Sure.
Oh, actually, you want to come up too?
Yeah.
Yeah. Good.
Yep, seats. He's interested in the book.
Do we need that? Good. I'm glad someone is.
Live. Live. Yeah, he's a poser.
Actually, let me get you this way.
Okay.
Get the full dog in. The profile shot?
Uh-oh.
More?
No, that's, well, can we get down on one knee?
Sure.
I'm going to put the book right in front of him.
Absolutely.
If he picks it up with his mouth, take a picture of that. And I'm going to stay around. Alex is going to stay around. We'll answer any questions.
Live.
Hey.
Live. Seats. May.
Good. Perfect. Get it. No. That's great. Get it.
You're forewarned.
Now, when I did the video a couple of weeks ago, the publisher sent me 10 covers because they wanted the dog to rip it up, and the dog would never even look at it. So I got covers.
Right now he's waiting for the command. So
He's
I'll
ready
have to
for
do-
you.
Oh yeah, he's just waiting for the command. Leave it. Tell me when.
Can you get a video of that?
One second. Live.
Oh my god.
All right.
Rolling. Abort.
Oh, that is great.
He's checking for drugs.
He will destroy.
I feel bad. You wasted like 12 months.
Roche.
I do not. I never condone destroying books, and you're right, young man. But in this case, we're going to cut him a break because that is great. And that's the video that I want to go on now.
And that's gonna make you. That's gonna be his new book.
Oh, get a picture of that. I'll get
I
one.
think I got you a video in there too.
Oh, great. Oh, it's just like that. Thank you very much, sir.
Sign my book.
Wait. Can you get a picture of that? A bunch of pictures. That is great. Oh. All right. Now. Yes, sir. Okay, look up. Oh.
Good boy.
Wait, let me get a couple. As many as I can. That is the best thing that ever happened to one of my books.
And yet, you even got so you can read the title.
Yeah, really. He's reading.
All right.
It's still a useful book. I can paste her in there.
He's always looking at you to wait for a command.
Yeah, pretty much.
Like I said, I'm going to be around. Alex is going to be around. I want to thank you guys very much for coming out. This was great. That is the best.
Awesome.
He doesn't ever have to let it go.
No, it's great.
I wish the Herald was here. So.
Great.
Folks, if
Now
there
he's
are no
good. Now
more
he likes it as
questions,
his
then we
boy.
have Sense of Murder as well as Border War for sale at the counter over there in the front room.
You know,
James is going to be signing here at the table to the right of the podium. A note to our internet audience, still time for you to call the number on your screen and we'll get a book shipped to wherever you are in the U.S. free of charge. I want to thank our guests from the Coral Gables Police Department, and please give another hand for Mr. James O'Bourne. Thanks very much.